Welcome to our webinar, Can Your Business Survive a 2-Week Quarantine? We get the question a lot, especially lately, how prepared are your employees to work from home to ensure continued service to your customers in the event of an office closure? With the recent outbreak of COVID-19, coronavirus, this is obviously top of mind right now for a lot of businesses in the area that are worried about maybe key employees getting stuck in quarantine, or them deciding that for the well-being of their staff, they just need to close down the office and have everybody work from home. Are you comfortable with the plan that you've got in place right now to be able to enable your employees to work from home? Will they be as productive? Will they be as secure? And will they be able to continue their function in their day-to-day roles? And that's what we're going to talk about today. And while the coronavirus outbreak has really brought this to light for us, it's important to keep in mind that this isn't just a one-time thing that we need to be concerned about, but really ongoing. What about when people get sick, if they're able to still work from home and get some of their main tasks done? Or what about if they have a sick kid at home? It's one of the things that a lot of these people are dealing with right now is the government just shut down the schools for the next 2 or 3 weeks. So now a lot of these employees have their kids that are at home. So are you able to extend that option to them to be able to work from home and know that you're doing so in a very secure way and in a way that they'll be able to continue to be productive? So at Vision, we've been working over the past couple of weeks to really put together a good solution that we can quickly roll out and allow our clients to be able to open that up for their employees. And as I mentioned, this is something that really should be thought of beyond just the current COVID-19 outbreak, but as a benefit for employees beyond that as well. So we're going to talk quite a bit today about a couple of main topics. First of all, we're going to be talking about Vision's virtual cloud desktop. Also, we're going to be talking about Teams and SharePoint, primarily around Microsoft 365. So we've got with us today a couple of our resident experts. We've got our VP of Technical Services, Brian Spurgeon. Brian, welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me.
He's going to talk to us about the virtual cloud desktop infrastructure, how things work with that, what the benefits are, and so on. And then we've got also with us our SharePoint and Teams expert, Abby Colville. Welcome.
Thanks, Chuck. Hi, everyone.
And she's going to go through a live demo of how we can use Teams, how we can use SharePoint to be able to extend the workforce to be able to work from home. So as I mentioned, our main topics today are going to be around Vision's virtual cloud desktop and then Teams and SharePoint on Microsoft 365. So we'll go ahead and get into the virtual desktop first. So Brian, why don't you take it from here and tell us a bit about what virtual cloud desktop is and why it's important.
Yeah, so I think the virtual desktop, what it's going to do is give you a fully functioning Windows 10 desktop that resides in the cloud that your users can log into from a multitude of different devices. What that does is allows your workforce to be scalable and also to be remote. So there's several benefits that go with this outside of the obvious of remote access. One of the big benefits is going to be this is a platform that's always up to date and secure, and obviously security is always just in the frontmost in terms of what we're focusing on. And I think this is a good solution that, I think a lot of times businesses, they're looking at remote access and security should be a concern. And I think this is a solution that checks that box. Also, one of the big benefits is going to be that it's optimized for Office Pro Plus and Office 365. So the platform that we use, it resides on the Azure data center, and it has a direct high-speed connection to your Office 365 tenant. So Abby's going to get into the SharePoint and Team stuff later, but basically you're going to have a very fast connection to your data, faster really than you can duplicate in your own office. So that's a huge benefit to it. One of the big things is like Chuck mentioned early on, we're able to get this system deployed very quickly, and it's also very scalable. So it's a solution that will grow with your business as you do, and it's easy to get users added in. If you're looking at opening different branch offices or anything like that, this is a solution that's very easy to extend beyond just your normal business. So that's another big benefit. And then last is just connect to your data in your office, your cloud. So no matter where your data is, you still can get to it through traditional means. So even if you have a file server in your office and you're leveraging these virtual desktops in the cloud, we're still able to connect you to that data. So it does give you a lot of different options in terms of how you go about accessing everything.
And that's the important part when it comes to being able to quickly spin up and scale for something like what we're dealing with right now is it can take a bit of time to move all of your data out to the cloud and all of that. And that's more of a long-term strategy. But for something like this where there's, kind of a disaster type scenario going on, you can spin these virtual desktops up in the cloud and then connect them to the data in your office. So it definitely shortens the amount of time it takes to get up and running. So along with that, there's plenty of cloud desktop benefits. We'll talk a bit more as we keep going here. But Brian, why don't you tell us a little bit about the user experience? I know you've specifically used this platform before and have seen it in action. So why don't you tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, so I was invited out to Microsoft Campus and ran through the gamut in terms of the solution, all the use cases, how to deploy it. We use it here internally. We have it set up. And one of the biggest benefits is the ability to access it from any device. So that includes, obviously, if you have your work laptop or computer, that extends it to users' home computers. You can get to it from a cell phone, from a tablet, iOS, Android. It doesn't matter. This platform is made to work on any of those devices and operating systems. So I think that's one of the scenarios we're dealing with right now is you have a lot of users that are going to be home for the next several weeks, especially if it's a desktop user in your office. So we're able to just get them access through a web browser to get to this fully functional Windows 10 desktop that runs all your line of business apps. So I think that's one of the biggest things is the ability to access it from any device. Also, from a security standpoint, it's residing on Microsoft Azure, which is going to be the cloud data center, and it ties into your Office 365 plan. It's got all the typical security that you would have at your own business. You're behind a firewall that's secure. Microsoft's monitoring the traffic. And then I know we're going to get into it a little bit later, but there's also some additional benefits in terms of separating your users' data, where if somebody did have a threat, you're able to actually isolate them and seclude them from the rest of it. So we'll get into that a little bit more. But then the other piece is just from an economic standpoint. So you're able to spin up this Windows 10 machine that allows really an endless amount of users to connect to the same machine, and it will just scale as we go. And it's a huge cost saving measure as well in terms of when you're trying to compare against building this own solution yourself.
Yeah, that's great. And so, as we move on here, there's lots of different applications that we would look at this for. It's not just something like the government instituting some kind of a quarantine or something like that. There's lots of different times where a solution like this would make sense outside of that as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's key is with the current temperature of what's going on around us, there's obviously just a huge microscope and a huge focus on the ability to work remote. But I think the important thing is to acknowledge there is a lot more benefits about this. And really, I think this is a practice that all businesses need to start adapting to. As we go forward, we rely more and more on technology. And if we're limiting it to only be within the walls of our business, then there's a lot of opportunity that's lost there. One of the big things I think is you can really sell this as a benefit, because if I'm an employee that's sick, what you typically run into is they'll come to work at any cost because they don't want to burn vacation time. And really they're putting other employees at risk. So if you have the ability for somebody to be fully functional and you can tell them, hey, stay home, log into the cloud environment and work today, they're going to do that. And so you're going to not lose productivity you normally would have in the past. But additionally, if you have a power outage, an internet outage, inclement weather, all those scenarios where instead of having a bunch of users sitting in the office waiting for the power to restore, they can be at a coffee shop, be at home. You can call up your workforce, tell them not to even come in today, just log in to the cloud platform, and they can go and function just as normal.
Yeah, I know that's something that we'll do from time to time if there's a bad snowstorm or something like that, where we'll just call it kind of the night ahead and say, you know what, everybody, let's not worry about getting everybody on the roads and having to deal with that. Let's just work from home. And it's a huge benefit of having this set up ahead of time, not trying to scramble that morning and figure out, okay, now what do we do? How do we get people working from home? Because that's when really you can end up putting in a solution that's not as secure, not as productive, because you're kind of scrambling and just figuring it out on the go. So that's why we put a lot of thought into this and came up with a solution so that we know that it's a good solution. We know that it's secure. We know that it's going to work and be productive, and that the users are going to like it.
Yeah, another huge benefit too is in terms of just onboarding and offboarding your employees, just normal day to day. You have this Windows 10, desktop that's there, has all your applications already loaded. So really, the second that you're going to make a hire, it's very easy to get that, to have them a workable desktop in no time at all, compared to having to go through, set up a brand new computer, install all your apps, get everything set up and synced. That's a huge benefit to this one too, is the onboarding and offboarding.
Absolutely. And, this does present a great work from home option. There's lots of reasons, but really we wanted to kind of key in on three main reasons. We've talked about the quick deployment, the scalability, so it's something that we're able to get spun up very quickly, and then as the need gets more, we can scale it up. As the need goes down, we can scale it down and kind of go along with it. But I thought, Brian, if you can talk a bit more about the second 2 points here about connecting to the data no matter where it resides and available everywhere, because I think those are a couple of key things when we're talking about people working from home and being able to do so very quickly.
Yeah, so that's the key part is, to get to this, you don't have to go through an entire migration to move all of your assets into the cloud. So even if you've invested in server infrastructure, in the last year, 2 or 3, and you're not quite due for a server refresh, you don't have to go and move all those workflows into the cloud. So you can spin up this virtual desktop, and then through a very secure site-to-site VPN connection between your office, your servers, and the Azure data center, we're able to have access to your local file shares, databases, anything like that, and just extend it to the cloud. So that's one of the big points, is that's why we're able to spin it up so quick. We don't have to go through and do this full server migration. And then I think along that lines, it kind of gives you flexibility too, because once you get to the end of the current life cycle of your equipment, you now have you already have a large foot, half the feet in the cloud. You can make a decision. Do I really want to invest in all this new infrastructure, or does cloud make sense for me? So I think it is a good transition to get to the cloud if it makes sense for your business. The other piece that's, I think, is the key really is the accessibility anywhere from any device. It's as easy as hitting a website, logging in with your email address, a password, and you can launch a fully functional desktop. One of the other nice features that it has as well is the ability to virtualize individual applications. So if you're the type where you have your work laptop, you access your Outlook like normal through Office 365, but you're going to be home and you can't get to your QuickBooks application, for example, because the database resides in your office, you can launch a virtual session of just your QuickBooks from this cloud virtual desktop. So instead of having to log into a whole new desktop, we can actually distribute any of your applications directly to your devices as well. But the key is, like I said, it's on any computer, work or home, any laptops, tablets, your phones, and I've tested it on all the devices. You'll be shocked at how quick it performs.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a huge benefit for sure. So we'll kind of go through a high-level overview. We've only got a couple of slides on this, so we're not going to go real in-depth. We're happy to do that on an individual basis as people are interested in learning more about this. But we'll go kind of through a high-level overview of our virtual cloud desktop solution. So here, we're going to talk a bit more about the user experience, the security, and the simplified management as well as we go here. So we'll jump right into the user experience. So Brian, why don't you talk a little bit more about that user experience? I know you had mentioned the user profiles a little bit, so touch a bit more about that as well.
Yeah. So I think one of the keys is the ability to, as we say here, containerize user profiles. Really what that means is instead of all of your user profiles being on the same drive, being in the same folder, which if a user gets their profile infected by a virus or if they run into a security issue, you also run the risk of all your other profiles being there. By containerizing, you're saying every user profile is separated from the next in terms of the location that it's stored in. So it's very easy to isolate an exploit and block it off from the rest of your company. With the security stuff built in on the back end, you can do it very easily and cut off access for that user until you resolve it. So I think that's a huge security benefit. The other piece is just the performance piece. You have this very high speed, dedicated connection on the back end between this virtual desktop and your Office 365 platform. So email, calendars, any files you have in SharePoint, any of that stuff, the connection is going to be way quicker than you experience on a day-to-day. So in a lot of instances, this solution will actually outperform your native laptop when you're referencing accessing your Office 365 data. So another huge benefit. I think a lot of times the question with going to the cloud is, will I suffer performance? And I think this is one of those solutions, really one of the first ones that kind of can answer the question and say, no, you don't have to suffer performance.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it's important to point out under the platform of your choice that, we see Mac OS listed, we see iOS listed, we see Android listed. So it really is any device. It does not have to be a Windows laptop. It can be an iPad. It can be a phone. The experience is going to be a little bit different because it's a smaller device, but it'll still work. And then it's important to point out too that this connection from any device, it does require Microsoft 365 licensing, but the important thing to think about is that if you're on Office 365 today, it's a very easy switch to go from Office 365 to Microsoft 365. It's really just a change of licensing. So that's not anything to be concerned about.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's a lot of other benefits than just this as well by doing that upgrade in terms of securing your Office 365.
Absolutely. So speaking of security, wanted to go a bit more in depth into the enhanced security and how it ties into Azure and your Office 365 logins and all of that as well.
Yep. So again, similar to the profiles, each user session that initiates is going to be separated from the next one. So you don't run into this scenario where if a user's profile or if their actual desktop gets an infection, that you're going to risk all of the users feeling the pain from that. So we're able to isolate down single users if something does happen in terms of a security threat. And the other piece is part of this requirement is that Microsoft 365 licensing, but there's so many benefits in there. And honestly, I recommend every business to be running that as the minimum anyways. But you're going to be able to leverage Azure AD, which is going to give you multi-factor authentication. So if anybody is trying to log in and compromise one of your users' accounts, you're going to be able to stop that because the users are then going to get a notification to say, hey, somebody's trying to log in. Do you want to approve this? Here's your code. And you're going to know, as opposed to without that in place, you don't know how many times a day somebody is potentially trying to get into an account. The other big benefit is you get Microsoft Intune here. That's a mobile device management solution that really can kind of enhance your bring your own device solution. So you're able to manage users on the device level. So if a user account does get compromised, you can actually lock the equipment down. If a computer is lost or stolen, and you're worried about what kind of company data is on there, you're able to remote wipe that device. Also, you're able to just enforce certain policies. If security is a huge concern, or if you have certain compliances you need to abide by, Intune is a mechanism that you can force all those policies through. You can do things like blocking any flash drives from being able to be plugged in. So, it's the possibilities are endless, but all this stuff is included with this Microsoft 365 licensing.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the economic benefits of this as well. So this is a very cost-effective solution, especially when you compare it against doing it yourself. So the old way to do it would be you go out and you have to buy hardware, server hardware, you have to buy all of the operating system, the licensing for remote desktop, the licensing for Office, all of that stuff, and get it set up. You're talking from a time perspective, weeks to get everything set up and get everything deployed, and you're talking a high upfront cost for something like that. Whereas when you look at something like this, it's just a simple per user per month cost. It can go up and down based on the need, however many users you need at that particular time. It can be changed based on the number of hours that the virtual desktops are needed, the number of users that are needed, kind of the resources that are needed for any particular user. So there's a lot that can go into controlling the costs around this. And on average, what we're seeing is for a lot of companies out there, you're probably going to average somewhere around the $15 to $20 per user per month cost range. It's kind of customized per client, so that's not a set price, but it's usually where we're seeing them average out to. So it's a very cost-effective way to do this and get it spun up very quickly, and not have to have that high upfront capital cost that you traditionally would have had to have done. And it's even more secure too. So there's a lot of benefits to looking at something like this. With that, we're going to move on, and we're going to invite Abby to come in here, and we're going to focus a bit on Teams and SharePoint. And Abby's spent a lot of time learning SharePoint inside and out, and has some nice stuff to demonstrate for us here as well. So Abby, if you're able to share your screen, and then we can let you take things over here.
Sounds great. Well, thanks, Chuck. And as you mentioned, yeah, we are going to be jumping into Microsoft Teams and Microsoft SharePoint. Let me just get up my window so you all can see this. All right, so if you're unfamiliar with the Microsoft Teams platform, it's Microsoft's replacement for Skype for Business, which is going end of life on July 31st of 2021. So just over a year if you're not already on the platform. If you are already on the platform, I'm going to go over some basics today that you might not know about, and that will make your time working from home or really any remote location so much easier. So for you that are still on Skype for Business, this chat feature may look pretty familiar, but we're going to go ahead and do a demo chat. So very simple, type in whoever you want to start talking to. In this case, we're going to talk to Irvin. Send your message, just like Skype for Business. But what is different is there's way more features with Teams. For instance, files. So this is going to allow instant file connection between your OneDrive, also through SharePoint, and you can share whatever you want with your recipient. Now that was a fake file, so it's not going to upload, but if we did have files that we were sharing between Irvin and ourselves, they would appear here. Another cool feature with Teams is this organization tab. Now in this scenario, we are demoing as Patty Fernandez. Irvin is our project manager, and it actually shows on an org chart where they are compared to us, and it also provides information about where they're located, phone number, etc. So if you're a large organization that might not know everyone in your office, this is a really good feature when you're outside the actual office space to know who you need to contact and where you can get hold of them at. So sometimes text just isn't going to cut it and a phone call is needed. Teams makes it super simple to connect with whoever you need to instantly. You just simply press the audio call button and it takes you to your person. Now we're gonna get voicemail for Irvin right now, so we're gonna leave that call. But in this case, say you couldn't get hold of one of your teammates, you can schedule a meeting by pressing that button down there. Might have gone through that a little quickly. It looks like a calendar. And again, we're not gonna cover everything today just for the lack of time, but we'll cover some of these big features. So schedule a meeting, we want to talk about the project. Teams will give you suggested times. And we have a few features here. One, we could just send this meeting and it's going to create what's called a Teams meeting, which is just a virtual calendar appointment. We can also add a location. Say we are going to be back in the office. We can pick a conference room that we want to meet at. Or there's this feature to add it to a channel. So channels typically are departments, but really can be divided up in any way you want in terms of groups of people collaborating on a common goal. In this case, we're just going to do a basic Teams meeting and send it over. So let's jump over to these teams that I keep referencing. As I mentioned before, teams are groups of people that collaborate on a certain initiative. Here at Vision Computer Solutions, we divide everyone up by department. In the sample company that we're viewing right now, Contoso, they've done it similarly. And right now we're with the retail team. So if we're to schedule a meeting for a channel, as we just saw in that preview, it's going to show up in the team. That means everyone involved with that channel has access to it. It's not private, it's for whoever's involved with the channel. So this is really good if you need a company-wide meeting when everyone is scheduled across the country, state, wherever you guys may be. Put it in a channel, everyone can join. And it gives this feature up here to join. So there's not going to be anyone in this meeting, but for demonstration purposes, I'm going to show you a few of the features that are really great with Microsoft Teams. One, you can always present your screen and it will give you several options, whether you want to share an entire window, if you want to just share an application, or there's even this cool feature called Whiteboard, which is literally drawing on a whiteboard and your entire team can collaborate and export that when you're done. There's closed captionings that are available. Now, note, this is only available in English. So if you have an international organization, you will only be able to get the English closed captionings at this time, but Microsoft is working on expanding that. And another really great feature is you can record this. It'll automatically be uploaded to Microsoft Stream, which is basically Microsoft's like internal YouTube, for lack of a better term. So you can share that out with anyone that may have missed the recording. So let's jump out of that. Now, any notes that may have been taken during this meeting will show up, and here's a few examples. Alex and Megan have commented on the meeting, so their information has stayed attached to this meeting. So one other thing I wanted to show you all in terms of meetings is you can also schedule one via the calendar. Just select a time, and it pops up that same invite that we saw earlier when we were meeting with Irvin. If you ever need help, I know in small offices, we often yell across to each other, when are you free? You can actually come in here and see a feature that will allow you to see when everyone's availability is. You just simply put their name in and it shows you their schedule. So really great feature when you guys are out of office. Let's discard this. Now, the final thing I want to touch on today in terms of collaboration is working on documents together. The guys mentioned previously that this is integrated with SharePoint, and that this files feature is a big thing that's connected with SharePoint. So if we click in here, you're going to actually see we can open this file in Excel online, in Teams, or in the Excel desktop app. For ease of this demonstration, we're going to edit it right in Teams. Now, this file is stored in SharePoint, making it accessible virtually anywhere: iOS, Android, Mac, PC, basically anywhere with an internet connection. So I can edit this with whoever I'm working with, and we can actually have a conversation here. Say I want Irvin's attention on something. I tag him, and this will ping him to come into this file and look at what I'm referencing. So this file feature is broken down by department, and it's tied directly to SharePoint. So if I was part of the sales and marketing group and I wasn't part of the retail group, I would not be able to access any of this information. It is all divided by security policies. I know this is a super high level presentation and may have sparked even more questions, so please send it in the Q&A box. We'd love to help you out and get you started if it's not something your company's already using. So Chuck, I'm going to pass it back to you now.
All right, great. Well, we appreciate you showing that, and it's important to note, as Abby mentioned, that a lot of that is tied right into SharePoint as well. So that's in the background. A lot of stuff that she's showing is stored in SharePoint, but we're able to access it right within Teams. I know we use this very extensively within our company, and it's really a great platform. We appreciate you showing all of the functions there, and we'll go ahead and switch back over here. And we will move on. So that is going to bring us to the end of our presentation today. We want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen. We want to thank Brian and Abby for taking the time to join us today and teach us a bit more about the different platforms that help us to be able to work remotely. And as I mentioned, please reach out to us with any questions that you have, or if you want to get more information about this, we're happy to help in any way that we can. We know that a lot of businesses are very worried about this right now. We've gotten lots of calls to our service team this week asking us about how can our employees work remotely? Are we set up for this? And so that's really what drove this. We wanted to be able to get something out very quickly, and this is something that we've been working on already, because we knew that this was going to be a need as soon as we saw this happening around the world here. So we're available to help in any way that we can, and please reach out. Call us 248-349-6115. Feel free to reach out by email. You'll see our email addresses all on here as well. You can go to our website if you want more information as well, and we look forward to working with you and helping you in any way that we can. Have a great day.